The world grappled Sunday with the United States inserting itself into Israel's war by attacking Iranian nuclear sites, an operation that raised urgent questions about what remained of Tehran's nuclear program and how its military might respond. Experts warned that tens of thousands of American troops are based in the Middle East, following the U.S. strikes at Iran's three nuclear sites. Natanz, Isfahan, and Fordow, the Islamic Republic's parliament has called for the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. However, its Supreme National Security Council will take the final decision. Such a move could be unprecedented, as the Islamic Republic has not done it before in any war or conflict. Port capacity, he added. That would potentially remove over 17 billion barrels of oil from global markets and affect regional refineries by causing feedstock shortages, the research firm said. The disruption to supply will impact Asia, Europe, as well as North America. Besides oil, natural gas flows could also be severely impacted, S&P said, with Qatar's gas exports of about 77 million metric tons per year potentially unable to reach key markets in Asia and Europe. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is your very own Fariha Farrukh. Welcome to 360 Digital English. The world grappled Sunday with the United States inserting itself into Israel's war by attacking Iranian nuclear sites, an operation that raised urgent questions about what remained of Tehran's nuclear program and how its military might respond. Experts warned that worldwide efforts to contain the spread of nuclear weapons by peaceful means would be at stake in the days ahead, while fears of a wider regional conflict loomed large. The price of oil rose as financial markets reacted. Iran lashed out at the US for crossing a very big red line with its risky gambit to strike the three sites with missiles and 30,000-pound bunker-buster bombs. Iran's UN ambassador Amir Said Iravani told an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council that the US decided to destroy diplomacy and that the Iranian military will decide the timing, nature, and scale of a proportionate response. Tens of thousands of American troops are based in the Middle East. Ali Akbar Velayati, an advisor to Iran's supreme leader, said any country used by the US to strike Iran will be our legitimate target for armed forces. Following the US strikes at Iran's three nuclear sites, Natanz, Isfahan, and Fordow, the Islamic Republic's parliament has called for the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. However, its Supreme National Security Council will take the final decision. Such a move could be unprecedented, as the Islamic Republic has not done it before in any war or conflict. The Strait of Hormuz, located between the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman, is the only maritime passage from the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. It is considered one of the world's most strategically vital choke points, serving as the main export route for the key Gulf oil producers, including Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Iraq, and Kuwait. It permits nearly 20% of the world's daily oil consumption, around 20 million barrels, to pass through it. At the narrowest point, the strait is only 33 kilometers wide, with shipping lanes in each direction measuring just 3 kilometers across. As per media reports, nearly 50 large oil tankers are currently attempting to exit the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's renewed threats in response to recent US strikes have intensified fears about the extent to which a conflict in the Gulf region could disrupt the global oil supply. What is the significance of the Strait of Hormuz? Well, US Energy Information Administration (EIA) believes flow through the Strait of Hormuz in 2024 and the first quarter of 2025 made up more than one-quarter of total global seaborne oil trade and about one-fifth of global oil petroleum product consumption. In addition, around one-fifth of global liquefied natural gas trade also transited the Strait of Hormuz in 2024, prominently from Qatar. Should Iran follow through on its threat to close the Strait of Hormuz, it could alienate its neighbors and trade partners. But the possibility of closure of the strait is low, experts said, despite Tehran's rhetoric around closing the strait. A closure would provoke Iran's markets in Asia, particularly China, which accounts for a majority of Iranian oil exports. Iran may be threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz, but many experts hold opinion that it's also the one with the most to lose. In major move after U.S. struck Iranian nuclear sites, the country's parliament on Sunday reportedly approved the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, risking alienating its neighbors and trade partners. The decision to close the waterway now rests with the country's National Security Council, and its possibility has raised the specter of high energy prices and aggravated geopolitical tensions, with Washington calling upon the Beijing to prevent the strait's closure. The data from the U.S. Energy Information Administration revealed that Iran had shipped 1.5 million barrels per day via the Strait of Hormuz in the first quarter of 2025. Furthermore, closure would also provide Iran's market in Asia, particularly China, which accounts for a majority of Iranian oil exports. The Strait of Hormuz is the only sea route from the Persian Gulf to the open ocean, about 20% of the world's oil transit the waterway. The U.S. Energy Information Administration has described it as the world's most important oil transit choke points. Iran's operations in and around Hormuz are unlikely to be all or nothing, but instead move along a sliding scale from total disruption to none at all, said Signum's Bishop. The best strategy of Iran would be to rattle Hormuz oil flows just enough to hurt the U.S. via moderate upward price movement, but not enough to provoke a major U.S. response against Iran's oil production and export capacity, he added. Should Iran decide to close the strait, it would likely use small boats for a partial blockade or for a more complete solution, mine the waterway, according to David Roche, a strategist at Quantum Strategy. In a Sunday note, S&P Global Commodity Insights wrote that only Iranian closure of the strait could mean that not only Iran's own exports will be affected, but also those of nearby Gulf nations such as the Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Qatar. That would potentially remove over 17 billion barrels of oil from global markets and affect regional refineries by causing feedstock shortages. The research firm said the disruption to supply will impact Asia, Europe, as well as North America. Besides oil, natural gas flows could also be severely impacted, S&P said, with Qatar's gas exports of about 77 million metric tons per year potentially unable to reach key markets in Asia and Europe. Qatar's LNG exports represent about 20% of global LNG supply. Alternative supply routes for Middle Eastern oil and gas are limited, with pipeline capacity insufficient to offset potential maritime disruption through the Persian Gulf and Red Sea, S&P added. The Commonwealth Bank of Australia pointed out that there is a limited scope to bypass the Strait of Hormuz. Pipelines in the Saudi Arabia and the UAE have only a spare capacity of 2.6 million barrels a day between them, while the strait oversees the transport of an estimated 20 million barrels of oil, gas and oil products per day, the bank said in a note. All these present upside risk to energy prices, with Goldman Sachs estimating that the market is pricing in a geopolitical risk premium of $12.